Previewing Bonnies versus Wildcats, how will the Bonnies contain Davidson's hot shooting? JP looks at Marcus Posey's heroics from 2015, and our crew gives their final predictions. Will anyone pick against the Bonnies this week? We'll find out. This is BBN. And welcome to Bonnies Basketball Now. I'm joined today by the Olean Times-Herald's JP Butler, who will have a post-game story on the Olean Times-Herald regarding the Davidson versus Bonnies game tomorrow. And then, of course, SBU TV sports reporter Leah Lockwood. Taking a look at what we're going to be talking about today, we break down the state of the St. Bonaventure Bonnies and analyze the environment around the A10, a bunch of teams battling for positioning in the standings. And later, we'll discuss the trends of the women's team, as well as give our final predictions for Bonnies basketball this week. And then Leah, we talk about key players. Who do you look for in this one?
For my key players for this game, I have Lofton and Oshun. I think that definitely the three ball has to fall for this game, and I think that Lofton is going to be looking to get back on track with that and definitely watch his shots to fall. And then Oshun, I have him. I think his defense has to be on point in this game. He can't be kind of passive in the paint. He has to look to do those putback shots, look for them to go in. We can't be missing those this game.
Yeah, and for Davidson, two guys for two very different reasons. Foster Loyer, he's the Michigan State transfer. They lose a guy like Kellen Grady, but plug him in and they haven't missed a beat. He's that Davidson type of player, smart, high IQ, high skill level, great shooter, and he's just become another piece in that deadly three-point offense. And then the mainstay, Hung Jung Lee, first team all-conference guy, player of the year, contender, great catch and shoot players, fun to watch. Those are going to be two very difficult responsibilities for Bonnet tomorrow.
And Wednesday night, the Davidson Wildcats hosted A10 rival VCU in a clash of A10 powers. An exchange of blows in the first half kept things even until a slew of VCU three-pointers gave the Rams a 37-29 lead at the half. VCU led by as many as 15 in the second half, but Wildcats clawed back in this one 14-0 run with under 5 minutes. However, their efforts fell short and VCU held on for a 70-68 win, handing Davidson their first A10 loss of the season. And with the loss, Davidson does remain atop the A10 conference, but they do lose that coveted AP standing. They were 25th, obviously. They did get votes this week, but they are no longer an AP ranked team as they came into the Riley Center like we maybe would have hoped. And talking about the state of the Bonnies, obviously they're sitting right now at 6th in the A10. I don't know if we expected to see them have the slow start that they did, but you know, they're still 12-5, 4-2 in the conference. Obviously they have a big game coming up against Davidson. That's going to be a huge one. And they got great bench help in that St. Joe's game. Koulibaly coming in, going 2 for 3 from the floor, 4 points. Very big to get him involved, to give Shun those coveted time on the bench to, regroup and get back out there, because he is a staple in that St. Bonaventure defense in the paint. It's going to be huge against Davidson with their big that they have in there. And then their starting five in that one, kind of, up and down, but Attaway and Holmes led the way for the Bonnies, and they were able to come out with that victory. Now, talking about this game against Davidson, Leah, what do you think the keys to the Bonnies victory is?
My number one is getting a three-point shot to fall. Bonaventure is only 32% from three this season, and I think that that's kind of where we struggle a little bit, and getting those shots to fall will help us a lot. It gains momentum, brings everyone up. The energy will be insane in the Riley Center if we can do that. Also establishing paint presence over Lee and Breakovic to limit their scoring opportunities, because we know they're quick, they'll cut to the basket, they're aggressive in the lane, so taking away those opportunities are going to be really important for us.
And so I think the opposite of that is being able to guard, defend the three-point line. Obviously, we know Davidson, one of the best, offenses in the league. It's, holds true this year. They're number 5 nationally in three-point percentage at over 40% of the game for three. They're 3rd in the league in threes per game at 9. It's just handling that offense, being able to, what do you do with Brakovic inside, and then the 4 shooters that surround him. Bonnet has struggled with that in the past. They did a better job of it last year in getting that sweep in the back-to-back games with Davidson, which kind of propelled it to that league title. That's going to be the goal again tomorrow.
And then tomorrow the Bonnies will come into the conference at 4-2, and let's take a look at how we got there, taking a look at the highlights from their weekend victory against St. Joe's. We pick things up with 13 minutes to go in the first half. Jaron Holmes knocks down this double clutch contested jumper. And a few plays later, Holmes dimes up Dominic Welch for this corner three. Welch also showcased his ability to drive to the basket as well in this one with this drive to the baseline for two. The Bonnies led by 4 at the half. In the second half, Lofton takes this one in for 2 and does fall down hard afterwards, but Bonnies got a sigh of relief as he was able to finish that game, and he did finish with 13. Later, Dom Welch showcasing his shooting ability again with this contested three-pointer to put the Bonnies up 5. Welch would also finish this one with 13. Next time down the floor, Jalen Attaway goes coast to coast with an and one to extend the Bonnies' lead. Attaway would finish this one with a team-high 22 points, also registering his 1,000th career point along the way. The Bonnies finished this one with a comfortable 11-point victory, 80-69. And now talking about that game against St. Joe's, the Bonnies' backcourt, they've been playing well together so far this season. Lofton, obviously, he had to miss those games. Holmes comes in, and that's why, Jaron Holmes is leading the Bonnies right now in points with 15.5. Definitely been a breakout player for the Bonnies so far this season. What do you have to say about the Bonnies' backcourt so far?
Definitely, I agree with you on all that. The Bonnies' backcourt this season has been absolutely insane, and I think that Lofton, he had that little bit of a break with the ankle injury, maybe lost a little bit of momentum, but we had those breaks because of the COVID protocol, and I think that definitely helped him a little bit. And Jaron's explosiveness in the lane is definitely something that they can go off of, get momentum from, definitely use in this game versus Davidson. Both of them have really good shot creation. They know when to shoot the ball and when to pass it, and court vision for both of them is just insane. Especially Lofton, he knows where everyone is. He's just the quarterback.
And it's going to be a big battle in the paint in this one against Davidson tonight. Luka Brajkovic is averaging 10.5. Well, he did 10 points, and 5 rebounds in the 2 games against Bonaventure last season, which the Bonnies won both of those against Davidson last year. And then this year so far, he's averaging 15 and 7, shooting very efficient, 60% from the floor. And he's had 20 points in 3 consecutive games, so it's definitely going to be huge for the Bonnies to keep him in check. And as for Oshun, he averaged 6 points and 8 boards against Davidson in their 2 games last season. And so far this season, averaging 11 and 8. And he's also had a block in 15 of 17 games so far this season. So hopefully his presence in the paint can, help St. Bonaventure contain Brajkovic, but it's going to be a battle in the paint regardless, JP.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's going to be one of the big keys is Oshun maybe being able to defend him one-on-one where you don't have to double as much. Now the defense collapses, you're kicking out to the shooters, and that's when Davidson can really hurt you. Oshun has had success defending Brajkovic before, although he's better this year. He's a third-team preseason all-conference guy, but this is a sort of show it for Oshun to be able to guard him one-on-one in the post, and that'll just make things so much easier overall for the defense. And then just be able to give them a little bit more offensively. He's shown that in stretches. We obviously saw it against Duquesne. If he can pair that with what he does do defensively, they will be that much better.
Coming up, JP details Bona great Marcus Posley's historic stretch from 2015. Plus, we look at the men's and women's A10 standings and analyze this week's loaded slate of games. This is BBN.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back. Dad! You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Welcome back to BBN. Now, as we take a look at the A10 men's basketball standings, You see Davidson obviously at number 1, so that makes tonight's basketball game very important for the Bonnies to try to give them that second loss, and then they would both be at 2 losses. And then you have, a couple more teams that St. Bonaventure's played. They lost to Dayton, obviously, beat VCU, and they lost to George Mason, of course. And then there's that St. Louis in there, the only team the Bonnies haven't played that are ahead of them, but then they'll be playing them twice this month. So right now it's a very jam-packed top of the conference. The women's basketball standings, you see Dayton and Rhode Island undefeated in the conference so far at 1 and 2. And then you have St. Bonaventure down towards the bottom at this point at number 12. But fortunately for them, they do play George Washington on Wednesday, and then they'll play George Washington again after they play Richmond. So it's going to be, a definite opportunity for St. Bonaventure. They'll play 2 times against George Washington and once against Mason, who they already beat, pretty recently on the road. So they'll get them at home. So the Bonnies can hopefully maybe get to that, middle of the conference like they wanted to at the beginning of the season. As we take a look at this week's slate in the A10, obviously St. Bonaventure and Davidson tip off tonight at 7 o'clock. And the only other game in the A10 tonight, Richmond will be at Duquesne. I think on Wednesday, LaSalle will be at George Washington, Rhode Island at Fordham, and Dayton at VCU. On Friday, it's just St. Bonaventure. They'll be taking on Richmond on the road on ESPN2. And now, JP, it's time for our favorite segment of the night, Story Time. What do you got for us?
Yeah, so we made this up last week. We're going to go with it. So the reason I thought of this Marcus Posley moment is because it just reminds me of the Davidson team from that year. That team came in with one of the longest winning streaks in the nation at the time. This team this year had just won 15 straight. That team was just outside the top 25. So Bona goes in there. It's the one and only game I've ever done in person at Belk Arena, Davidson. And Posley, as Bona fans remember, has the coast-to-coast buzzer beater to win that game. Little floater in the lane at the buzzer to win that game against a good Davidson, something that obviously fans are hoping for tomorrow. But he wasn't done there, because the very next game, 3 days later, Bona is hosting number 18 VCU in the Riley Center. And what happens? Posley gets the ball, drives the lane, puts up a layup at the buzzer to win the game. 2 games in a row. He was like a national headline that week. He won a lot of National Player of the Week awards, and a huge week for Bona basketball to beat Davidson and VCU. And so here we are again. Davidson followed by Richmond, 2 of the most talented teams in the league. A huge week that could push them in one direction or another.
In 4 minutes, we'll give our final predictions for the Wildcats at Bonnies, and we'll get into some women's action. This is BBN.
Put the keys down, Kevin.
But I'm gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
My text to emoji ratio has gotten a little out of hand.
A little?
Yep, I'm definitely gonna call a ride home.
Welcome back to BBN, and it's time for the Bolin Breakdown. And this week, it's the Bonnies' offensive rebounding woes in that St. Joe's game. Maybe not for the entire game, but this possession in particular. We take a look against St. Joe's. Hall for the Hawks misses this 3 after a great closeout, and Attaway gets beat for the rebound, which results in a second 3-point attempt, this time from Reynolds, and then it's Attaway again with the poor box out. And this was St. Joe's being patient then after that until they eventually find Funk, who nails the 3 to cut that 8-point lead down to 5, and that's what the Bonnies don't want to have to deal with against Davidson, right, Leah?
Right, I think that it's all about limiting Davidson to just that one missed shot, and then especially they have a roster full of guys, so if you give them the chance, they're going to get hot and they're going to stay hot, so we have to really limit that.
Definitely do not want Lee getting hot from deep, and we don't want, I think what worries me is it could be a repeat of that Northern Iowa game. You don't want to have the teams or one player get hot and then all of a sudden you're down and try to have to get back. So try to limit them to one shot and you'll be okay.
We've seen this before. I mean, prior to last year, they had lost 4 straight to Davidson in those games, giving up an average of 13 threes a game. We've seen it over and over. We know this Bonnie team has been susceptible to the 3-point line this year, but they did a better job of it against Joe's on Saturday. And like we said, a lot of the same guys back for Davidson last year, and in 2 games, a year ago, they held that team to an average of 56 points a game. It's going to take that type of effort again to come out with a win.
Switching gears to the Bonnie's women, while the men took down St. Joe's on Saturday afternoon, the women took on Fordham. We pick up this one in the second quarter with this top of the key three from Maddie Wiskowski, who's now hit a 3 in 4 of the last 6 games. She has been on a tear. The Bonnies would trail this game by 4 at the half. In the third, Asia Johnson finds Ayana Lopes for this and 1 to cut the deficit down to 2. These two have been on a tear playing together since A10 play has began. Later in the third, Johnson calls her own number with her signature off the dribble jump shot to give the Bonnies a 2-point lead. The Bonnies would end up trailing by 3 heading into the final frame and were outscored by 5 in that frame as they fall 62-54, putting an end to their 2-game winning streak. Now, taking a look at this women's team, obviously, Asia Johnson in that game against Fordham, she finished with 23 points, making that now 6 consecutive games of over 20 points scored. And obviously, this team started the non-conference slate, getting those, big wins and helping, run up that tally to help Jesse have this, most wins he's ever had as a St. Bonaventure coach. And then when they start A10 play, 0-4 start, but then they get those 2 in a row, then this loss to Fordham, George Washington on Wednesday, an opportunity to get back into the winning column. And then Ayana Lopes, she has been on a tear as well. Asia Johnson and Lopes, if they can play together well, this could be a team that could finish in the middle of the conference like they want to.
To me, that are going their way, even though there's still some inconsistency. They won. Asia Johnson's been playing great, 20-plus points in 6 straight games, and they are being more competitive with some of these teams that before they maybe hadn't been. Fordham's really good on the women's side, and to go in there and only lose by 8, that's a good sign. It's just something they need to build on now.
And now it's time for our final predictions. JP, we'll start with you.
Okay, and I think Lee and I just had no idea we picked the same one here. So this is a game. It's going to be a tough game. Obviously, it's pretty much a nationally ranked team coming in. It's going to say a lot about this Bonnet team, how tonight goes. But because it's at home, because of how critical and needed this game is, I'm going to go with the home team here and say Bonnet 74, Davidson 70. I think Bonnet will have an opportunity to score against them, but then it's just doing enough limiting of Davidson's scoring to come out with a win. So 74-70 is what I'm going with.
Right, and like you said, I said the exact same thing. Bonnies win 74-70 just because it is a really critical game. The energy in the RC should be insane, hopefully. And I think that a lot of things that the Bonnies have been trying to put together for the whole season now are definitely about to be right on track there. So they're just this close to putting it all together.
I got a little unique with it, 74-69, and I went back and forth on this one all day long because obviously, we have that loss to George Mason and that loss to Dayton. And when you look at Davidson, obviously VCU beat them, so that gives St. Bonaventure, VCU is at home, St. Bonaventure's at home, so that gives them that chance. But then you see how St. Bonaventure's played in some of these games against good shooting teams, like Northern Iowa comes in, can't miss a shot. Yep. And Davidson's obviously one of the best three-point shooting team in the country. So it's going to be a very close game, but I think the Bonnies, because they are at home, if this game's at Davidson, I don't know, but the Bonnies are at home, I think they'll be able to get it done in a very key game in the A10 conference to try to lock up those 2 teams at 2 losses apiece. Well, that's all the time we have for BBN this week. My thanks to JP Butler of the Olean Times-Herald and SWTV sports reporter Leah Lockwood. I'm Ryan Bolin saying so long and see you next week.
Nice move under the basket. Going up and she's got it.